So, okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending this, and thanks for inviting us, Anshul. So what we'd like to talk today is about using Gen AI to create formative quiz based on lecture content. We're both learning technologists. We support staff in different colleges in the university. I'm in the College of Social Sciences, and Carol is in the College of Medical, Veterinary, and Life Sciences. And we'll be showing how we've used ChatGPT and Copilot to generate MCQs for formative quizzes, basically using PowerPoint slides or using lecture transcripts. And my content is more of a demonstration. I've been demonstrating how to use it. I've yet to convince somebody to actually use it in practice, but Carol will be sharing her experience of how she's been using it, and they've been using it in practice with an online course she assists or supports. So a little bit of background on frequent quizzing. So the idea here is that if you have frequent quizzes, it can work very well. There's a literature that tends to support this point of view. It seems logical enough to me, really. Do frequent quizzes with students. They're able to know how much they know, how much they don't know, approach the next week with more confidence. And sort of model that I had in mind is every week students get a check your learning quiz at the end of the week before they move on to the next week. It's a familiar concept in teaching. One interesting thing from this research that's coming out is that lower or middle achievers tend to benefit a lot more from frequent quizzing. And probably the reason for that is the better students probably do well in the quizzes, but there's not much association with better grades because maybe they do well anyway. But the lower or middle achieving students, when they do a quiz, there's two kind of it's a forward testing effect to talk about. It's first of all they might be overconfident and they realize they know less than they think they did, and secondly, when they do the quiz and they feel that they're confident in what they've learned in this week, when they approach the material for the next week, they're more confident, they're less worried about it, and then so each week they have that confidence and the momentum to keep them going throughout the semester. And yeah, so that's really some of the main points I drew from this literature. There is some literature out there also about using generative AI to produce quizzes. You can see here, there's two different studies showed that great majority were not usable directly straight out of Gen AI, basically. And of course, as you know, anyway, Gen AI can hallucinate and make stuff up. But these two studies showed that a high number of the questions coming out were not ready to use off the shelf, so to speak. So they're not a magic wand. But in our experience, I mean, Carol will talk about in her experience, she doesn't recognize these numbers herself. But it's not a magic wand. On the other hand, it really can produce things much, much faster than you normally would. And that's the real advantage here. And so you can correct it. You have to check it in any case. It's worth pointing out the 80% number there that by May et al. They had a very detailed set of criteria for checking whether or not a quiz, an MCQ quiz was usable. They talk about measurement error. So the idea that will a quiz really determine whether the student knows the material in effect. So they'll have some criteria such as if an answer option should be similar in length, because apparently if you have, say, 4 answer options and one is longer, and if somebody doesn't know the answer, they're going to guess. But they tend to choose a longer one because that seems more complex. So these are factors which you must take into account when you really want a really, really robust MCQ. In our case, we're really talking about formative, lower risk context. So I think these things are not as important in this case, but it's worth remembering, of course, that generative AI doesn't get everything right. So just a little word, I'm sure you're familiar with generative AI, but it's important to remember. It's a large language model. It's a probabilistic text generator. So really what generative AI does, it's been fed masses and masses of text, mostly English, mostly Western world text. And that's for the AIs like ChatGPT and so on. And basically just strings words together in the most statistically likely way that they are going to occur in the context that you give them. So just an example, if you have an apple, it might associate that with the word red. Okay, and this is very simplistic, and I'm not an expert in AI, generative AI, and like many of us, we're just learning as we go along. And however, if you had the word apple with Newton, then perhaps then it would think of gravity because of the anecdote about the apple falling on Newton's head. So it just strings stuff together. It's not intelligent. It doesn't know anything. It just puts things together. It hallucinates, it will make things up, and is biased. It will reflect the biases of our society. So it's always important to keep that in mind when you're using generative AI. Prompts are very important. So getting the right prompt is really key. So those of you remember first time you started using Google and so on, you have to learn how to search well. So learning how to do prompts is similar sort of skill. You need to know how to do a prompt for AI to get it right. The three key things normally that is argued that you should do is you should present the role to the large language model. You should tell it you are such and such a role, and then tell you what it wanted to do, give it careful details, and then the format, the output you want it to come out of. And as those are the three things you have to think of. Um, and yeah, and I give some examples here. This was the paper by Lee talked about in his experiment. He basically did three different levels of complexity of prompts as in his paper. Um, and I just point out some key things here. You need to tell it. I mean, it's obvious you need to tell it the number of questions. You need to, what are the point of the questions is to understand the concepts. It should have only one possible correct answer and three incorrect answers. Sometimes, both of the papers mention, sometimes it will give you more than one correct answer. If you put in this prompt, that's less likely to happen. You should tell the context, what kind of unit, what is the context, this is the classes in the courses. You want to assess their understanding. Here, there's some more detail about the content should be believable enough that the student must read the text, and so they can't simply do a word search. My experience, I'm still learning. My experience initially that I have simpler prompts, and I've increased the complexity of the prompt slightly. I haven't noticed an awful lot of difference in the output, but I have to say I haven't checked it in detail like these papers did, because that really is, if you're going to put it into practice. But this is the prompt I use in the example I'm going to show. And importantly here, which really helps as well, is I tell it to put in the Aiken format from Moodle. So it outputs it in a format, in a text file, ready to upload into Moodle. And that really, really saves a bunch of time. And that's really handy again. So, and I've got a video now, a short video I'll share. And there's no sound. I'll just talk you through it as I go. It's just under 4 minutes. So this is an example here. What I'm doing here is taking a PowerPoint and I'm exporting it as a PDF first. And I found this is necessary. I think things have changed slightly now, may no longer be necessary, but previously Copilot won't read off your OneDrive document in the browser. You have to have a PDF. So I export it as a PDF and I have it on then I will open it and I will view, tell it to open with the Edge browser. I'm using Edge here in our university. We have Edge, we have Microsoft, like most people, and it is the Pro. So there, I'll tell it to summarize the document. I do that first just to confirm it's reading the right document. Sometimes it won't work. You have to clear the cookies or something, and then it might work. So I'm just checking it's reading the right document, and then I'm happy it's reading the right document. And then I put in the prompt, and there you go. And I put it in there, and it will give me my MCQs. These MCQs come straight from the PowerPoint, and that's what's really useful with this technique. It's the material you delivered to the students this week, and they're getting questions on exactly the same thing you delivered to them. So they're able to go back. They might go back and check your slides to get the answers, and they're really, engaging with the content that you are delivering to them. You must check it, of course, and must emphasize, always check everything in detail. Sometimes it gets the format wrong. It'll have a colon where it should have a dot as well. A few things like that, but definitely the content, you check it all carefully. Save your text file, and then you're ready to upload it to Moodle. And so I put it in the question bank first in Moodle. This is Moodle 4.4. and create a category first. This is just, you don't have to do it this way, but I find it simpler. So you create a question bank in your category in Moodle. I assume this would work with other VLEs similarly, but I don't have a lot of experience with those. And so I create a category, and I'm just going to import that file that was outputted into the quiz here. So it's the Aiken format. Upload that. And it all works well. Hopefully it does this. It might stop at this point and it will tell you, oh, there's something wrong with the formatting, and you just have to go back and check that. Then you got your quizzes ready to go. Well, your questions are ready rather, and then you have to create a quiz. And just pull in those questions you've already created from the question bank. So this is pretty much real. I speeded up this video a bit at some points and chopped out a few bits, but you could, in principle, I think the thing that would take the longest with this is really just checking the questions, because the rest of it really can go very quickly. So there you go. I just find the category and I just pull in all the questions, and that's our questions ready in the quiz. So they're all in the quiz now. And you can always edit these once they're in Moodle if you wanted to add some extra details, such as putting a rationale for the correct answer. You could put it in here. With Aiken format, you can only have one answer. When you upload it in the format itself, you can only include one correct answer. But you could always change that at this point if you wanted to. And there you go. And that's your quiz ready to go. So so that's an example of how it works. And then finally, what I did here, what I suggest as a model, is you can use it in Moodle so that basically students you can set up a requirement using completion tracking in Moodle that students must do this quiz here on week 1 before they can access the lecture slide on week 2. And that's sort of the model I use to try and encourage students to. It's a way of basically forcing them to do it, okay? And then, you know, they have that learning and approach the next week with more confidence. So so that's my part. I'm going to hand you over to Carol now, who should be ready, I hope. I'll just stop sharing.
Thanks very much, Julian. That's fantastic, and it sets the scene nicely because you've incorporated all the theory there as well. So that's fantastic. So I will just quickly share my slides. It's having a wee think about that. Okay, so hi, I'm Carol Walker. I'm from the MVLS Digital Education Unit in Glasgow University. So MVLS, as Julian introduced us, is Medical Veterinary and Life Sciences. So that is our college. So this is very much a practical approach on how we use ChatGPT, primarily for reflection for the students, and we do that through creating learning activities like MCQs and sorting. Just move on. So why are we using ChatGPT? I think really for 2 reasons. For the students, we wanted to encourage deeper reflection after a lesson. So MCQs get a bit of a bad reputation, but they can be very useful in getting the students to reflect on what they've just learned. So we place MCQs after the lesson just to get them thinking about what they've just learned, and just also to make it a wee bit more engaging and active. And in terms of academics, it also benefits the academics as well. There is a heavy burden, I guess, on creating MCQs manually. It's a time-consuming process. You've got to get the distractors correct and everything. So it really takes up time. So I really want to emphasise this point quite strongly. we still need academic input. We need the academic expertise. So we're using ChatGPT as a tool. So it's to assist in generating sort of the draft and the framework for the MCQs. Nothing goes into our learning material without being reviewed by an academic. So they're all reviewed and refined by academics. I have to say, just quickly jumping back to Julian's slide about the Lee paper, about the error about 16% being correct. That's not been our experience. ChatGPT has output quite a significantly high number. So this is only anecdotal evidence, but quite a high number of usable content. So I'll just move forward. The inspiration for looking at our reflective practices was I'd read a couple of books, one on learning, so a learner focus, Make It Stick, which is fantastic about how we learn. Another one was Uncommon Sense Teaching. Now, it's about teaching children and young adults, but it does the core principles apply to adult learning as well. And what I've taken away from these two books is highlighting the role of reflection in learning and how important it is. So one way we can, one method of doing that is to introduce MCQs, other activities as well. We have reflection points throughout our learning material as well, just to consolidate the learning. So this is a typical MCQ. So we produce our learning content in Articulate Rise, which sits in Moodle. So Articulate Rise is sort of a rapid development environment. And I'll talk you through the process very quickly of how we generate these MCQs. So we have MCQs, and we also... Oh, someone's got their mic open. We also do sorting activities as well, just to vary things up. So we're just using these inbuilt tools within Articulate Rise. Okay. So you may be wondering why I've used or we've used ChatGPT over Copilot. Copilot at the University of Glasgow is our supported AI tool, so it's integrated into the Microsoft environment. And I think for me, it's really just historical. When we started looking at Copilot and ChatGPT, Copilot didn't have things like tracking of prompts. So you would put a prompt in and you'd come back afresh without any history. For me, it was important to be able to go back into ChatGPT and refine the questions as needed. So that was an important feature. And also the ability to upload files, which came later in ChatGPT. Previously, I was just copying and pasting the transcripts directly into ChatGPT. That worked fine as well, but both now have the ability to add files. And this is more of a subjective one. The output quality for us was better from ChatGPT. Now, I haven't looked at Copilot recently, so I can't compare them. But for us, ChatGPT needed the least amount of prompt revision to get usable content. So very briefly, how does it work? So in order for us to generate MCQs, what we do, and I'll just give you an overview of our content creation process. So we, as the learning technologists, will take a narrated PowerPoint file from our academics. So say that's an hour's worth of learning, 13 slides, 13 pieces of audio. So we'll strip that content, and what we do is put that into Articulate Rise, create the lesson. But the important thing for us down here is in the alternative formats that we create for each lesson. So the students also have access to PowerPoint, a Word document, which is a transcript of all the audio, and an MP3 file. The bit we're looking for here is down at the bottom of your screen. So we're looking for the Word document. To get to that stage, so you don't need to worry about the tools, whatever. This is just to give you an idea of our process. It doesn't matter about the tools, it's about the process. So we take the PowerPoint file, we strip the audio, we process it, we level it all out. And from that, say this is 13 audio files. So we've got 13 audio files there. We'll put that over to our transcription service, which we use rev.com, and that gives us 13 transcripts. We add them all together, and our final output is this word transcription. This is what we use for ChatGPT. So we take this Word document. So this is an example of one of our finished transcripts. So that's just the transcript of the audio for each slide. And we'll upload that to ChatGPT. Now this is an animated GIF, so I've got 20 seconds to wait. So I'm a bit quick for it. Here we go. So I'm adding the file here. I'm holding here for dramatic effect. So I'm just dropping a file up. So it'll upload it. And now I'll put a prompt in. So I'd like my postgraduate students to reflect on what they've just learned. Can you generate 3 MCQs with 4 options each? And I don't find I need to go beyond that in the detail. I've set the level as postgraduate student, so it knows what level to pitch it at, and it goes away and generates these MCQs. That was a shorter version of the prompt, actually. The longer version is that I tailor it to Articulate Rise, because Articulate Rise has a character limit of 90 characters. So I'll just say, keep it within Articulate Rise's character limit. So what I do with that, copy that, paste it in Teams to my academic lead. She will review it for any changes and get back to us. If there are no changes, it goes directly into Rise. Unfortunately, it's not as slick as the Aiken format. It's a manual process of copying and pasting in Articulate Rise. I could automate that using some automation tools. I haven't got around to that yet. Just go over here. So the MCQs, once they're finalized, will go into the end of each lesson. So we could say here, so this could be like an hour's worth of learning. We would have, I've actually called it a knowledge check. We've changed that now to more accurately reflect what it is. It's a reflection check, and it's purely for the student's benefit. We don't track scores or anything. And I've talked about the process for academics. I'll upload the output from ChatGPT, and we'll have a back and forth. And I'm very, very lucky with a very responsive academic. As soon as I send it, she reviews it and I get it back. So that's wonderful. Just conscious of time. So very briefly, using ChatGPT, ethical issues is a big subject, but I just want to draw in on a couple of issues. Data privacy. If you're using ChatGPT, by default, all your data goes to improve the model for everyone. So you want to keep your data out with that model. So make sure you go into data controls, turn that off so that it's not been, so your content is not being used elsewhere. In terms of sustainability, we are creating the MCQs for the students. So it takes up a lot of resources computing resources to generate the prompt and create this output. So we generally don't see that because we're using cloud-based services. So we don't see the actual volume it takes. So we're doing a one-to-many for the students. We're creating one MCQ and it's all been checked and reviewed. We could get the students to say, go and create a MCQ on your own. So that'd be 30 MCQs by each student created. So this reduces the overhead on AI. Students can still do that anyway, but everything's fact-checked and reviewed. So it has a benefit here. I'm not going to go over Notebook LM, just to flag it up. I was going to do a demo of it, but we don't have time, I don't think. Yeah, we're running out of time. So if you haven't looked at Notebook LM, it's a fantastic resource. You can upload multiple resources. And the reason I'm flagging it is because you can upload audio files, you can upload, just very quickly, You can upload a range of files. Being a Google product, it doesn't like Microsoft, so if you have Word documents, you would need to export them as PDFs or upload them to Google. And you can upload, but you can have multiple resources. So if I, does it say that where? You can upload 50 resources. In the middle bit, you can chat. You can ask questions about all your resources here. You can also, you may have heard people creating podcasts from these. We do that ourselves. I've got one program just now using the output of these podcasts, and we're just evaluating that just now. The feedback's been very positive. New feature been added is creating mind maps. And just very quickly, this is the feature I wanted to show you. You could just click on study guide here. That goes away and generates MCQs, longer form questions, and it also generates a glossary item as well, all based on the sources over on the left-hand side. I'll just skip over that just now. So what's next? So these are sort of rhetorical questions, really. We don't have time to go into them in any detail, but it's just for you to think about after this session. How do you keep up with AI? It's such a rapidly developing area. How do you use AI in teaching? Could you use these processes in your own practice? And yet, how do we make sure it's used responsibly? And just in terms of keeping up to date with AI outputs, this image on the right was generated with AI. So the image models are improving. This was just released by ChatGPT on the paid accounts. So it's a fabulous resource. Image generation has really come on leaps and bounds. Just going back, just how do you keep up with this rapid AI developments? And very quickly, just an overview of the features of Copilot and ChatGPT. When Julie and I were putting this together yesterday, we really struggled to get information, consistent information that wasn't conflicting, but it's really just to give you the key features of both platforms. And I should say that personally, I have ChatGPT. I have the paid version, which I pay with my own money, just because I use it so often. Everything that I've shown you today with ChatGPT, you can use the free version. You just might bump into some limits. So you only get so many prompts and messages that you can use in a limited period of time. It might say, you've used up your quota, come back in 3 hours. But everything you can do in ChatGPT. And just very finally, our conclusions. So how can you use ChatGPT and Copilot for making MCQs? How will you use that in your own teaching practices to make reflection easier for the students, and also ease the burden for academic staff on creating MCQs? It is a loop, and just keep refining the process. New tools appear weekly, daily, actually, so it's really hard to keep up with AI developments, but just keep an eye out on developments. Yeah, I think that's us.